Welcome to the Abbotsford Farm Podcast.
That was a song almost.
Well, I was just thinking we don't have like a jingle or anything, so I thought it'd be cool. Welcome to the Abbotsford Farm Podcast, where we talk about the Abbotsford Canucks. It's powered by Black Press Media and the Abbotsford News. I'm Tim Dickert, here as always with Ben Lypka. Ben, did you dress up for Halloween?
I'm not a big Halloween guy, so no, I did not dress up this year. I was at the Abbotsford Canucks game on December 30th, and not that many people dressed up for that either. I don't know. They didn't really market it properly, or people weren't dressed up. It wasn't that big. Like, they were promoting this big Halloween event, and it wasn't really all that exciting. But the game was good. The game was.
What happened to you as a kid? Why aren't you into Halloween?
I had some, I blame it on my parents a little bit. The lack of effort when I was a kid for the costumes. Like, one year I was dressed up as a box. Like,
just like a full
cardboard box. I was a mystery box, and it was a cardboard box with a bunch of wrapping paper on it and a question mark. And that was my most memorable costume.
I mean, that's not a bad costume.
Costume.
That's not bad.
I don't know. I have nothing against Halloween. I enjoy it. I'm just not the type that dresses up. But what about you? That you have kids? Yeah. That's a responsibility. You have to set the standard for them young. Like,
yeah.
So you don't ruin them. That was ruined.
my wife is she's a theater teacher, and she really loves Halloween, and so costumes and Halloween are a big part of sort of our like DNA. Like, Halloween is like the number 2 holiday after Christmas in this house. Yeah. Easy. And so she made a SpongeBob costume for my youngest child, who's 6. And then my older boy, who's 9, was Squidward. My wife was Patrick. And I was, what's his name? The one who's always trying to steal the Krabby Patty recipe. Do you watch SpongeBob? What's his name?
I'm sorry. No.
I forget his name. Anyways, all dressed up for Halloween, and we did our
crab. There's a crab on there, right?
Yeah, I wasn't Mr. Crab. No, I wasn't Mr. Crab. I was the little. If someone knows the name, I'm gonna just if someone knows the name, you can send me a tweet at @DTimDickert, and we'll get to the bottom of this. But yeah, we always dress up. Always a big family costume. Like, we were the 4 Ninja Turtles one year. We were characters from Mario. Like, my boys were Mario and Luigi, and my wife was Toad, and I was Bowser. We always do it up on Halloween.
I think we need to see these photos online just for proof. We need to start sharing. Just do share a bunch of them, because I want to see them. The Mario one sounds kind of interesting, actually.
The Mario one was good. Yeah, that was a top-notch costume. Absolutely top-notch. Because we took the Ninja Turtle shell from the year before and put spikes on it, and that was Bowser's shell.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so good. Okay, so we are going to talk about the weekend that was for the Abbotsford Canucks, and we're going to talk a bit about the games coming up this weekend against the Stockton Heat. Obviously, there's a connection there. But before we get into any of that, the biggest story this week in the world of hockey, which definitely touches on the AHL, is the story of Kyle Beach.
Yeah, to be honest, it was a tough week to be a hockey fan. It's been a tough couple of weeks. Just hearing all the details about this case and how everyone involved dropped the ball. No one listened to Kyle Beach, and following up on all that, just the lack of accountability from everyone. It's been tough, and it does nothing to help the game at all. Any of this stuff coming out, and it's just a horrible story.
And do you think, because when I hear stories like this, now obviously I have small kids who play sports. They don't play hockey, but they do play sports. And I volunteer as their coaches for soccer, and I'm one of their. I coach both of their teams in soccer. I coach both of their teams in baseball. And I'm not going to lie. I think, and part of the reason I'm there is, number one, if you don't volunteer, you have to pay a certain amount of money. So I don't want to do that, obviously. So you volunteer. But the other reason is so I can be there, right? I can be there to see what's going on, to help control sort of the culture or what is happening around the kids and the team. Like, are they focusing on fun? Is it being too serious? Are the coaches pushing too much? So by being one of the coaches, I can help control that. And I think as a parent, you would be lying if you said that this stuff, like what's happened with Kyle Beach, like we've heard, quite a few times in the world of hockey, about these people who are in positions of trust, positions of power, who take advantage and then abuse kids. If you, as a parent, you just can't help but think about that stuff when you send people away, particularly these people who send their kids away for junior hockey. Their kids across the country, and they're staying with a billet family, and you're
at a very young age. And that's what you have to remember. Like, these are 15, 16-year-olds, some of them, right?
Yeah. And you're trusting that the team and the family is going to take care of your kid. And, we've heard some horror stories. Obviously it's not the norm, but the problem is this idea of protecting hockey, like protecting hockey, like it's this thing that needs to be protected, or like the NHL or the team or the integrity of the Stanley Cup, are these things that need to be protected over and above kids and the lives of these people. Kyle Beach was a first round draft pick. Everyone else picked in the top 20 of his draft year played in the NHL at least a little bit. He never played one game in the NHL. And you have to think that this directly affected his career, that not only was he unable to achieve these dreams that he'd set out for himself, it poisoned the world of hockey for him. And I think that when we talk about protecting hockey, it shouldn't be hiding these people away or hiding these stories. It should be believing the kids, believing the players, and doing whatever we can to make sure that these things don't happen ever. And if they did happen, making sure that you deal with them as quickly as possible so that they don't happen again. Instead of, it just blows my mind that that's what's protecting hockey is taking care of the players and making it feel like a safe, inclusive place to be.
Yeah. And above all else, this is a game and it's fun. Like 98% of the players who ever play minor hockey are never going to play one moment of professional hockey. So let's make it fun. And I don't know if you probably saw, did you see the interview, obviously, with Beach and Rick Westhead?
Yeah. I did.
Very powerful. Like, that was an excellent interview. And one of the more heartbreaking moments, I thought, there were a lot of them, but was just his parents, their reaction, how they felt after learning the news and how helpless they felt. And you could tell in his face, like how much that affected him.
Yeah. And, there's a thing happening around hockey in Canada, and I think you're probably starting to see it. I mean, there's a few things, right? There's the high bar, the high barrier to entry, right? Like, you can't be a low income or even low to middle income family and have a kid play hockey. You just can't. It's too expensive, right? And then if you do get into hockey, then it's all the extra stuff, the training, the spring hockey, the off-season workouts, all those things become expected, and that piles on and piles on and piles on. And then all of a sudden, you've got these kids who maybe they love hockey, maybe they don't, but there is a sense of, well, my parents have invested tens and tens and tens of thousands of dollars for me to play. Well, I can't stop playing now. Oh, this guy's treating me badly. Oh, I'm being bullied by the team. Oh, or there's a guy on the team who's, using racial slurs. Well, I can't quit, or I can't complain, or I'm going to lose my spot on this premier team, or I'm going to lose my spot. And then all of my parents' sacrifices are going to be for nothing. And it's just, I feel like if we made it easier for everyone to play, everyone who wanted to play got to play, and there weren't these high bars to entry, and there weren't these pressures baked in from the local leagues to be trying out for rep, to be putting in time to do extra ice times and all these other things, then the pressures wouldn't be there. You wouldn't feel afraid to lose your spot. I feel like it's yes, sexual assault is everywhere, and it's a huge problem for all vulnerable people. But the problems when we talk about specific to hockey, I think are so, like, we could solve them at the start. if we all just got on the same page and did what you just said, Ben, and did focus on it being fun. That's the point. Then let's all agree that that's the point and make sure the kids are having fun. And then the other stuff, the elite athletes will rise to the top. I mean, baseball, because you don't have kids, so you obviously haven't seen how it happens, but for baseball, for these kids, when my son was playing hockey when he was 5, right after the season, there was pressures to join specific spring teams to sign up for off-season training, and he was 5 years old.
I find that so ridiculous.
And there were all these pressures, and baseball at 5 years old, first base honks when you step on it. There are no outs.
That sounds like fun to me.
And the kids have a great time. It doesn't matter. And the way they succeed throughout the years, they get different colored hats. It's like halfway through the year, you've earned your red hat. Here you go. And the kids are like, yeah, I got a new hat. I know that in BC we have like a baseball machine. Like we send there's a lot of high level players in BC in baseball, and don't have trouble sending British Columbians who excel at baseball to NCAA universities or even to the pros. We don't have that problem in hockey either, but it's the culture around it. And I think that's the thing that needs to change. And that would stop us thinking that we need to win at all costs. And that then allows these predators to come in who maybe are good at the job of hockey, but we overlook the fact that you overlook their predatory behavior because they're helping you win. And I think it's all connected. And, there's smarter people than me out there, hopefully looking at these things and hopefully finding ways to solve them. But, when you're sitting on the outside, it certainly doesn't make hockey the kind of game you'd want to interact with if you hadn't grown up with it.
Absolutely not.
And I don't know where you go from here, right?
Now we transition.
Hopefully what everyone takes from this is that, like you hear often from sexual assault survivors, it's just like they need people to believe them, right? And just like if someone broke into your house and robbed you blind, my first question to you wouldn't be, well, did you lock your door? My first thing would be, oh, Ben, that sucks. I'm really sorry that happened to you. And I think that when we talk about sexual assault survivors, they want you to believe them right away. They don't want you to ask, well, what did you do to make it how is it partly your fault? What did you do to bring this on yourself? They want you to believe them and they want you to support them. And I think if everyone takes that from this, that we believe and we support, and people have an atmosphere where they feel safe to come forward, then we can weed out these predators. We can keep predators from being part of these things that we love, and hopefully, make a safer, more inclusive place for everyone. And I think that if we can all take that from this, then hopefully that's a step in the right direction.
Yeah. And I was going to say, as the media, the media dropped the ball with this story big time. That's the other thing, that one major takeaway I took away. You can't tell me that these people, all these NHL people who claim they're insiders, and they never reported on this story. And it was extremely disappointing. And I know personally, if this type of story ever landed on my lap or I learned about it, that's something you can't ignore. And it's more important than who's the third line defenseman. And it's more important than the penalty kill. It's a much more important story. And I hated the way it was covered. Other than Rick Westhead, everyone else dropped the ball. Everybody dropped the ball.
Yeah. Yeah. And hopefully it's the kind of thing where people aren't, this idea of media insiders being connected to the game and they need to support the NHL and vice versa, so that they'll keep their insider status and they can't bring the league down, because then that's bad for them. And it's like, well, no, let's all do the right thing. Let's all do the thing we know we need to do.
And your responsibility is the readers, not the organization, not the corporation, not the game. So,
your responsibility is to the human beings.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think so. We go from the horrible news of hockey to actually talking about hockey. And the Abbotsford Canucks had a rough go of it over the weekend. last weekend. They had a rough go. They lost both games to the Ontario Reign, but I have some bright spots I want to point out then. Okay. So first off, the Abbotsford Canucks expansion team, brand new team right now are sitting 3-2-2. So they're above 500. Not bad, right? Not bad. The Ontario Reign, a team that they have played 4 times in their first 7 games, is the number 1 team in the division.
They might be number 1 in the entire league.
They've only lost once, and it was in overtime.
To Abbotsford.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so the Canucks they've played the Ontario Reign 4 times. They have gone to OT 3 times against the Ontario Reign, maybe the best team in the league. And so it feels like, oh no, back-to-back losses, things aren't looking good. But I think if we look at it in perspective, it's positive. And I think it's really positive is they got absolutely shellacked, ran over in the first game, losing 5-2. And then pushing the next game, coming back from down 2-0 after the first period, tying it up and going to overtime. I think it shows that there's a lot of fight in this team, and this team isn't just going to roll over to maybe a team that has some higher end talent.
Yeah, and that Saturday game especially, that's a game Abbotsford should have won. It was a 3-2 game. Now the first the 2 goals in the first period, they were both power play goals. Arsenault took a 4-minute double minor. He drew blood for high sticking. So they're down for 4 minutes. And that's when Ontario scored those 2 goals. They capitalized. You can't blame the goalie for those 2 goals. Spencer Martin, he was making his first start. He played really well, I thought, on Saturday. And, Abbotsford fought back after that, scored a goal in the second, scored a goal in the third. And then the overtime, and I don't know. I don't like the overtime 3-on-3. It's fun, but then, so the Abbotsford had a penalty heading into the overtime. So then it went to 4-on-3, which is bizarre to me. I don't understand. So Abbotsford Abbotsford's penalized, so Ontario gets an extra player, right? Only in hockey would this bizarre thing happen. So they get an extra player. And then when Abbotsford's player is up, it's 4-on-4 for a bit until a whistle, and then it's back to 3-on-3. So anyways, I'm not a big fan of the overtime. Stick to a format. That is bizarre. And so if you lose in that kind of format, it's a loss, I guess. They still got a point. It's not a 5-on-5 loss. I don't really consider it a big deal. So I thought Saturday was actually a really good effort, and they probably deserve to win.
I disagree with you wholeheartedly about the overtime. Okay, I couldn't do now. Before I argue with you about that, I do want to say that you pointed out the first 2 goals were on penalties. They've had a ton of penalties so far this season, and that's been a real problem for the Abbotsford Canucks so far, and that's obviously something that they're going to need to work on as they go through the season. Otherwise, you're just never going to win a game if you're taking so many penalties. And if we think about as we move towards the season, we see the Abbotsford Canucks as a playoff team. You need to have this stuff sorted out, because you can't be giving teams man advantages in the playoffs and expect to win. So that's something that we can maybe keep an eye on as we go through. Now, overtime 3-on-3 is the absolute best. I don't understand what's wrong with you. Also, if you're 3-on-3 and the guy takes a penalty, you can't go 3-on-2. That's ridiculous.
Well, I don't know.
It's a head shake. That's the most ridiculous thing. Imagine 2 guys out on the ice. That's just absurd. Okay. Makes absolute sense. Don't take a penalty in overtime. How about that?
I just think it's weird. And so does basketball go 3-on-3 in overtime? No other sport does this. No other sport does this. Soccer doesn't go. Soccer doesn't take a guy away.
Listen.
Why does hockey do it? I don't get it.
Okay, could you cool it for a second? Let me finish my thought here. Okay, basketball doesn't do that because it's not likely that there's a tie. They score so many points. There's 3-pointers, there's 2-pointers, there are free throws that are 1 point. It's not likely that teams are going to be tied. Teams don't go to overtime that often. So when they do, it's okay if they just keep playing until somebody wins, right? Because they'll go to triple overtime if they need to in the regular season, just because it's so rare. In hockey, it happens more often, right? Because it's 1 goal, 2 goals, whatever. It's easy to tie and go in. I went to a game once. So like most people, I wasn't in a family where we had access to Canucks tickets or season tickets or anything like that for much of my life. I remember being a teenager, my brother won tickets to something at a bar or something. He won 2 tickets. And so he wasn't a big Canucks fan, but he took me because I am. So we watch the game. It's the Canucks versus the Ducks, like the Paul Kariya, Teemu Selanne Ducks.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Right? Canucks to Ducks, we get down there, and guess what? 0-0 tie. And then it goes to overtime, 0-0, no one scores. 0-0 tie. I saw no goals.
I think that's awesome. That's awesome.
What a nightmare.
What is wrong with a tie? That's what I don't understand.
No,
what is wrong with a tie? In the regular season, there's no problem with a tie.
There's nothing wrong with a 5-5 tie. Okay. But a 0-0 tie, a 1-1 tie, what a nightmare. I
think that's hilarious. I would love to see a 0-0 game. I think that would be hilarious.
Terrible. It was like the only game I saw for like 3 years. It's like the only Canucks game I saw live for like 3 years, and it's a 0-0 tie. So
and you'll never forget it. That's how memorable it was.
Yeah, because of the shame and horror of the whole moment. I am all in on 3-on-3 overtime. I think it's a lot of fun. I like it that it's just chance after chance after chance. It's so exciting for the fans. I haven't been in the building for a 3-on-3 overtime yet, but I imagine if I was, I would probably just be standing the whole time. It would be so exciting.
It's fun, but it's nothing like the real game. That's my point. And the playoffs, it doesn't happen. So it's like, a loss in overtime. It's whatever. It doesn't bother me. I don't think it says anything about the team. That's my point.
Okay. But it's still fun to watch.
I guess.
And I would also rather the game end on a shootout, because then it ends on some sort of action as opposed to teams just standing around playing for a tie.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know.
Come on. You come around.
Bring back the tie.
Absolutely not. We can probably, let's make a poll on Twitter about this. After we release the episode, we'll do a poll on Twitter. Who wants ties in hockey? What a unbelievable. So, okay, the other thing we should talk about before we move on, Sheldon Dries is on an unbelievable tear.
He really is. Yeah. And it kind of snuck up on me because he's been solid. He's been consistent. And then, he had a big weekend. He had a really big weekend, and it just seems like he knows where to be. He does his job fairly quietly. The media talked to him after the game. He's a pretty quiet guy, but he's I don't know. He's just a smart player. He knows how to bury his chances, and that's the type of player Abbotsford needs. And yeah, he's fit in really well early on. The coach had a lot of complimentary things to say about him as well. He's been off to an excellent start.
I mean, he's got 4 goals in the last 3 games. He scored 3 goals over the weekend. I know in his post-game scrum, someone asked him hey, what's going on? What are you doing differently? And he's like, oh, well, I'm shooting the puck more. You guys to shoot it to score. And I was like, yes, thank you. Could you go talk to the NHL Canucks and explain to them that they shoot the puck more, they might score more goals?
Yeah.
Sheldon Dries is playing unbelievable. If we had some sort of Abbotsford farmhand of the week, Sheldon would be our guy, right? This week. Sure. So good.
For sure. The other thing I wanted to touch on before we move on is it's going to be interesting to see how Jack Rathbone fits in.
I'm excited.
He was sent down. Hamonic went up, and we're not even sure, Hamonic can kind of move up and down. So we might see Hamonic again, especially when the Canucks travel to the US, because I don't believe Hamonic can go across the border.
No, not yet.
We might see Hamonic again, but it's going to be a lot of fun, I think, to watch Rathbone. He's kind of struggled a little bit with the NHL, and I think it's a great move to move him down to Abbotsford just to give him some more playing time and just more chances.
Well, and when he played with Utica and got some AHL time, he did really well, right?
His numbers were amazing.
Yeah. He excelled. And so if that's what happens, if he comes down, plays, 2 or 3 games with the Abbotsford team, and, puts in a couple goals or gets some assists, it'll help him find his game again. Cause I agree with you, watching him play with the NHL team, he looks like he's trying to do things. He's trying to prove that he belongs. And by doing that, he ends up making mistakes. So I think it's a great move. I would rather Travis Hamonic just be fully vaccinated, just like the rest of the world who wants to be. So just like get on board with that, but we don't need to get into too much of the vaccination stuff. But yes, no, until he's fully vaccinated, he can't travel with the team. So he could play with Abbotsford while the Canucks are on a road trip, and you could bring Rathbone back up. I think there's lots of options there, but I'm excited to see him with the team, and because he's going to make an immediate impact, which is great. And it would be awesome for the Canucks to grab a couple wins this weekend.
Totally. Yep.
So the Abbotsford Canucks obviously still creating their identity, still getting a sense of who they are on the ice, but us as fans also trying to get a sense of who the team is off the ice. And one of the ways we relate to the team, one of the ways we interact with the team is through their play-by-play voices. For the fan, the casual viewer, certainly the voice we associate with the team, the sound we associate with the team is often the sound of the play-by-play announcers. You know, when you think of the Canucks, you probably think of John Shorthouse in your head because they're so tied together. And Ben, you had a chance to chat with the Abbotsford Canucks play-by-play guy.
Yeah, James Cybulski, and it seems like everything came together really fast. He just kind of the news was just announced before the first home game, so AHL teams have to provide commentary. When you're at home, the home team has to provide commentary for AHL TV, the streaming service. So they had to find someone. And yeah, I mean, I think from everything I've heard, Cybulski seems to be fitting in really well. He's enjoying the job. And honestly, I think it's a pretty big name for Abbotsford to get Cybulski. He's fresh off his stint with Sportsnet 650. He's involved in the NHL video game series. So it's a big name, and I think he's fit in really well, and he seems to be enjoying everything about the job so far. So now we're joined now by a Gemini Award winner, former TSN and Sportsnet personality, the voice of EA's NHL series, and most recently, the first ever voice of the Abbotsford Canucks, James Cybulski. James, thanks so much for joining us. How are you doing this morning?
I'm good, Ben. Thanks for having me, man.
Awesome. Hey, so this Abbotsford Canucks opportunity, how did this come about? Because it all seemed to come together pretty fast.
It certainly did. Obviously, the organization has had a Herculean task trying to get, a franchise up off the ground with very little time, right? When you look at expansion teams, you usually have a team that's awarded and you've got a few years to kind of get your ducks in a row, where I think with respect to Abbotsford, and I say this respectfully, they didn't have a lot of time on their side, right?
No.
The season ended. They basically had to start from scratch, and obviously you had a coaching staff that you were bringing over, and you had a little infrastructure there from a hockey operation standpoint, but organizationally, new staff, new people, new bodies, new city, new region, new community, new fan base. And so, a lot of new players, right? I mean, a ton. And so, I mean, I look at it from my standpoint. I think from a broadcast standpoint, it wasn't their highest priority in terms of, with respect to kind of getting things done late. Mm-hmm. I think they were definitely interested in wanting to do it. I think it was just more of a time management, like, okay, what are our priorities here? And so, for me personally, I had always been, the whole reason I got into, sports media many, many moons ago was to be a play-by-play guy. Mm-hmm. And, I did a bunch in community television as a kid. I grew up in Ottawa originally, and I had done tons of community television and volunteered. I did play-by-play for Ringette and minor hockey and karate tournaments and touch football and university football, university basketball, and then had an opportunity to do some Ottawa 67s play-by-play, both in school and also a little bit with community television and a little bit with private radio as well. I loved it. But when I say community television, a lot of that was all for free 99. And so there just weren't a lot of opportunities, and the play-by-play opportunities that there were when I was younger. The people that had them and for the very few jobs across the country were, hey, it was kind of one of those, like, there wasn't a lot of turnover with
They don't leave. They don't leave.
No, it's kind of a job that you can, you really got to screw up, or, you can kind of grow old in a lot of ways. I mean, the business has changed a little bit in the last few years, but, traditionally, at least when I broke into the business, and so you kind of follow the work, and maybe you can appreciate that, but, I think somewhere along the way, I fooled or convinced enough people that I was a half decent host and I was a half decent reporter, and so kind of, followed the money, if you will, so to speak. And so, landed at the Score and TSN and then Sportsnet. And so I'm very fortunate in that respect, but, I'd always kind of wanted to do play-by-play. And 3 years ago, they were looking for a new broadcast team for the EA Sports video game, the NHL franchise. And
yeah.
I auditioned, and they went through a lengthy process with that, and they liked what I offered. And so they, I became the voice of the NHL video game franchise. And this is now year 3 as part of the team, which I am so honored and so thrilled to be a part of. But, it kind of rekindled the spirit of, man, I'd love to do play-by-play and to do, kind of live events. And, it was kind of an unconventional way to become a play-by-play guy in some respects, doing the video game, but, it's a lot of fun to do. And, I think the feedback, you're not going to please everybody, but I think the feedback for the most part has been pretty good. And so when Abbotsford was coming to town, for me, I was intrigued, I was curious, and I had just sent a note saying, hey, listen, if and when you guys are, ready to figure out what you want to do, like, consider me interested. I'd be, I'd be intrigued to kind of to see that. And so I kind of quietly bided my time, and it worked out pretty well. And so, Mark Halliday was the one who, I think was kind of overseeing things, and we had a good conversation. And, it was just, I think it was somewhat of a mutual admiration society, from both sides. And I said, look, I'm, here's where I'm at. And, if you guys need somebody, I'd be happy to, I live south of the Fraser. In terms of, I've covered the Canucks over the years, and, I think maybe there's an appeal with the cachet I can offer as having, the background with the video game or whatnot, but I think there seemed to be a good fit for both sides. And I feel like, knock on wood, so far so good.
So now with Abbotsford, you're doing a solo booth. So now in the past, have you ever done that? And what are the challenges with the solo booth?
The challenges with the solo booth is that it's just you, and and it's kind of it's running commentary, and it's also the set of eyes. To me, it's having, I miss that extra set of eyes that kind of see something maybe behind the play, the analyst that, I think I can connect the dots for the most part, but every once in a while there's something behind the play that you just don't see, or you miss, or there's a breakdown in something, and offering the analysis. And, for me, I like to offer kind of the high, I'm kind of an energetic approach to my broadcasts, where I try to, I've always kind of been a high energy type guy from a live event standpoint. And, I feel like I kind of want to take what I've done in the video game and transfer that into into real life, and try to present an intensity and an energy that makes it exciting for the consumer, whether you're listening, streaming right now on abbotsfordcanucks.com or watching on AHL TV. And so the challenge for me is just kind of having that downtime to breathe, and, offer some added perspective. And what more can I offer the person listening, the fan or the consumer that is taking in the product. So we had Ken Priestley up in the booth on Saturday night in the fourth home game of the season, and that was nice. Ken was an absolute stud in the American League, and he's a BC product, and he once scored 56 goals in I think 64 games playing for the Rochester Amherst way back when. So I don't know what I think the hope is, and I don't want to certainly speak for the organization, but I think the hope, and I would certainly love to see an analyst, in the booth as well, if it's in the cards. And I think, hopefully, that gets addressed or added at some point. But I think, for now, it's, the games are on, the games are available, the games are accessible. And I think what the league mandates is that, each home city has to provide, a broadcast for AHL TV. And so I think for the short term, I'm here, I'm calling, and, I think along the way, I think they'd like to probably build on what they have, currently from a broadcast standpoint, that whether that's a radio partner or maybe even, dare I say, a TV partner down the road or whatever that looks like. And, maybe adding the presence of an analyst as well.
Yeah, you're like the Joey Styles of the AHL.
Oh my God.
One thing I wanted to touch on just on your past, the 2010 Olympics. Now, for myself, I was still a student, but I was working for the Olympic News Service at the time, and I got to cover some of the women's hockey, and that was a huge thrill for me, especially at that time in my career. Such a great memory. Now, you won an award covering it, so what are some of your memories from 2010? And I guess what exactly were you covering? It sounds like you were kind of covering everything.
I was a couple things. I won an award the year after for something else, but I was nominated for best reporting. So that was cool.
Yeah.
It was honestly, the Olympics were probably one of the best experiences of my life. It was so much fun professionally. It was a lot of work. I think it was a little nerve-wracking just knowing just how big an undertaking it was. It was funny. Keith Pelly, who is now the commissioner of the European PGA Tour, he was kind of the head of the broadcast consortium. So it was, all the TSN and CTV and Sportsnet employees that all kind of converged together for this Herculean task, as twice I used Herculean. But this monster project, and Keith kind of sits down with us all, and there's hundreds of us in this room at the International Broadcast Center, which is now the Vancouver Convention Center, and he's like, I have this vision and the magic and painting pictures and telling stories, and it's going to be great, and just kind of this inspiring sort of spiel. To which then Gord Cutler, who was kind of if Keith was the general, I would say, Gord was kind of like the colonel or or the major, if you will. And you're just like, all right, everybody, just make sure you got your shit together and don't screw it up. There's a lot of people watching. It was just kind of like, you had this flowery sort of inspirational speech, and then the sort of, like your parents kind of giving you, all right, get your act together, and off we went. And, I would say we owe a lot of credit to the Canadian athletes in 2010 who had a lot of pressure to live up to the hype and own the podium. And, they delivered. And it made it easy for us to tell the stories for the most part. And the athletes were all wonderful to deal with, by and large. And it was just, and the people, the fans and people from around the world, and people that, in the Lower Mainland and Metro Vancouver and the Fraser Valley, it was just a magical time. It was, as somebody who had grown up in Ottawa, Canada Day is a special day in our nation's capital. You usually get somewhere between 250,000 people or even more that converge downtown on Parliament Hill. And it's just this massive celebration and sea of bodies and fireworks and loving and people with their faces painted and just wearing red and white. And, the best way I could describe the Olympics, it was essentially Canada Day for 2.5 weeks.
Totally.
It was so much. It was so much fun. And, once that first once that first medal was won, it was kind of game on and just a party. And, it would have been interesting how we would have looked back on the Olympics had Canada lost in the men's hockey gold medal game in overtime, to the US. It'd be funny to see how, we would look at it, be such a, deflating way to end it. But at the same time, they won. And it just kind of was the exclamation mark on what turned out to be, I would say, if anybody who was there or experienced, they would just tell you they had an incredible time.
Yeah, totally. I know you've spoken about the video game a bit today, but what I would recommend listeners read Tom Zilich's story. That's one of our sister papers, The Surrey Now Leader. He did an excellent job kind of profiling the video game and the background. But I was just wondering, and one of the takeaways I got from the article was just how much work is involved in this game. Like, people just think it's, I don't know what people think, but they probably don't realize just how much work is involved. So you're constantly doing updates, and how much work is it? It seems like an ongoing thing.
For the video game, it's I don't know. I'd say we do about 250 to 300 hours a year.
Yeah.
And I would just, and we just kind of build and add more layers of commentary to the game. So, for Ray Ferraro and I, we've been part of the game now for 3 years as a broadcast duo. And, when you factor in between Ray and I, if we're both doing somewhere in the neighborhood of 250 to 300 hours a year, it starts climbing up to, I would say, if I could just venture a guess, between Ray and myself, there's got to be close to somewhere in the neighborhood of 750 hours of commentary that is built into the game, right? And so, if you're hearing a lot of the same stuff, then you play the game a lot. We've been, whether it's 2-man booths or separate solo sessions, and now we've incorporated Carlin Bade into the mix as well, who works with the Los Angeles Kings and also does some stuff with the Ontario Reign. We do a lot with it, and have just kind of built lots of layers. It's a lot of work, but it's a lot of fun work too.
Right. And yeah. What does it mean? Because I know when I was a kid growing up, similar age to you, I was playing NHL 94, 95, 96, all those ones. Then I went into the next generation on the PlayStation, but it must be such a thrill to be able to be on the game. And what does it mean now to be a part of these games that we all played as children?
It is the best. There's no other way to describe it. It's really cool. It's a dream come true in a lot of ways. It is, selfishly speaking, mind-blowing. It's humbling, and it's a tremendous honor. For me, and I say this, I grew up playing the video game.
Yeah, same here.
I was a gamer, and I feel like my generation is the first generation to grow up with video games. I was a little kid when Pac-Man and Donkey Kong and Zaxxon and Space Invaders and Asteroids all kind of hit the ground, came out in the marketplace, and Frogger and all these games, right? So the arcades, and beyond just the pinball machines, but arcade games, video games. And so, growing up playing Atari, and then eventually, we didn't have Coleco. That was too high end. My uncle had it in television, and then, I had a Nintendo, and then it was a move to a Sega Genesis, and, and started playing NHL on my Sega Genesis, and playing NHL 94 and NHL 95, and, kind of go away for a couple of years, and then, get a PC version of, NHL 98 and then, become a PlayStation guy in the early 2000s or late 90s and PlayStation 1 and then eventually PlayStation 2 and, PlayStation 3 and now PlayStation 4 and, still saving my pennies to get wait for the price drop on PlayStation 5. And, but I've been kind of a PlayStation guy, but from Sega, from a Sega Genesis playing, NHL and then playing it all on the different consoles over the years. And now, here we are in the next generation of consoles. And that's another part that I think is really cool to be part of, a first generation console game. And so the first time that the PlayStation 5 has an NHL video game and it's my voice in there with Ray's and that's I look at it this way. To me, I played the game growing up. I loved the franchise. I have so much respect for it, and I think I'm very mindful whenever I'm on the microphone doing a voice session and we've got a great team. Like we have a great team of producers and editors and engineers that just, make this game sing. But I am very cognizant and very mindful and try to be very respectful to make it sound as good as it possibly can be because, not only am I, an employee or a contractor of the game, I was a consumer and a fan of the game too. And so I want to make sure I can try to channel that passion from a fan standpoint into the product.
And those games live forever too. So it's like, it's always going to.
Yeah, they just might at some point work into the $5 bin, 4 years from now, right? When
Exactly. But you've been extremely generous with your time, so I want to thank you very much for that. Was there anything else you wanted to mention? I guess fans can follow you on Twitter at James Cybulski, but feel free to plug away.
Yeah, I mean, you can find me on Twitter at James Cybulski. I loiter on Instagram from time to time as well at James_Cybulski. And go pick up a copy of NHL 22 in time for the holiday season. And that's where I'm at. And hope to catch, for people listening, I hope to see you and say hi at a future Abbotsford Canucks game because it's a lot of fun. It's a great energy, and I'm really hopeful that health restrictions will lift sooner rather than later. That we can get a full crowd in the barn sooner rather than later because it's a great arena, it's a great atmosphere, and man, Ben, honestly, I think it would just be such a fantastic environment with a full house in there. It's already great with half capacity, but man, I just think it'd be next level with a full house.
Yeah, I was gonna say even that first game, like the crowd for that first game was incredible.
Yeah, no, it was great. I mean, that first goal, I mean, when Bailey scored, it just the crowd erupted. I mean, to get an overtime winner that night as well, it's been fun. I mean, obviously Ontario, won the last home game in overtime, but we've been treated, I think, collectively. Most of the games have been good. You got a shutout from the home team. We watched 2 overtime games, and I mean, there was one dud. One tight game until there was a clunker of a third period. But 3 of the 4 games have been very entertaining, in my opinion. And so, I'm having fun. Just hopefully my voice holds up over the course of the season with all that screaming.
I'll stop asking you about wrestling, and then you'll be fine. Hey, thanks again very much. And
all right, Ben.
We will listen to James on the radio and online, and check him out on Twitter at James Cybulski. Thanks again, James.
All right, take care, Ben. Thanks, everybody.
Play-by-play voice James Cybulski chatting with Ben. It's great that he's so excited about being part of the AHL.
Yeah, you can tell, and I think it's something that it's reignited a passion in him. I didn't know he was a junior hockey announcer, and just like his experience, he's got a really, really cool. His work history is incredible. He's worked the Olympics. He's done junior hockey. He's done all sorts of sports. And now to come full circle and be able to do what he wanted to do when he was a child, I think that's really cool. And like I said earlier, it seems like he's fitting in really well. The only thing is, like, I think it's personally, I think it's challenging to do the job solo. Like, few people, I can't think of any sport. Like, there's very few. That maybe there's some baseball guys that I'm not aware of, but for hockey, especially, like, you need to take a breath. There's so much going on. So I think that's kind of challenging, but he seems to be up for the challenge. And yeah, I've enjoyed his work so far. Definitely.
Yeah. And it's nice to have a voice that people recognize associated with the new team, for sure. All right. So coming up this weekend, the Abbotsford Canucks are taking on the Stockton Heat in Stockton. If you're not familiar with the Stockton Heat, they used to be the Abbotsford Heat. I hate the Calgary Flames. It's deep in my bones. I see their logo and it makes me sick. I want to throw up every time I look at it. I think they're the ugliest jerseys in the league. I hate everything about the Calgary Flames. And so I'm excited to hate the Stockton Heat.
I think a lot of people are like that, actually. I think there's a lot of sentiment. First of all, I think it's kind of lame that they just kept Heat. Like, you can't come up with your own identity, and they kept the same name. I mean, I guess it's Calgary's team. They want to keep
Calgary's team.
Yeah, they want to keep it somewhat associated, but I don't know. Why would you want to be associated with whatever the Abbotsford Heat was? Like, there's a bad stench related to that team. But anyways, yeah, no, I think I want a rivalry with these guys. Let's just do it.
Like, I think if the Abbotsford Canucks just pound them into sand this weekend, that'll create some bad feelings for the next time they come. And maybe we could boo them out of the building, maybe when they come, like boo the Stockton Heat. That'd be fun.
What if and I don't want to encourage anything, but what if you know how many like Abbotsford Heat jerseys there are sitting around, Abbotsford Heat merchandise? I don't want to encourage anything, but what if we had some sort of bonfire?
That is a fantastic idea. Everyone brings their old Abbotsford Heat stuff that they don't like anymore. I mean, if you liked your Sven Barchi Abbotsford Heat jersey that you got in your closet, we'll keep that there. But if you've got old shirts or hats or stuff or foam fingers, I mean, we should absolutely light that stuff on fire, right? Like let's talk to Aquilini. Let's get this thing figured out.
I think we should. I think it's better for the environment, clear up space, don't take up space in the landfill.
Sure.
The interesting thing though is Stockton, like if you look at the standings, they're off to an excellent start. Like they're in the same boat as Ontario. They haven't lost in regulation. They're 5-0-1, one overtime loss, not a shootout loss. So they look like they're pretty good to start off the gate. So it could be tough.
I mean, it's exciting that this weekend the Canucks are going to give them their first 2 losses of the season. Like that's exciting. That's going to be really great. I'm really looking forward to that. All right. Thank you so much to everyone for listening and for the support. Please follow and share our podcast wherever you can. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google, Amazon. I mean, literally everywhere. I think a bird will come and deliver you the podcast. You can't shake us. We're everywhere. But share the podcast, share with your friends. Thanks to Black Press Media and the Abbotsford News for the support, of course. And we are going to weigh in. We're going to have a poll on Twitter, so please vote on that. Do you want to see ties, or are you happy with the 3-on-3 overtime format? Or how about what if we do? Are you happy with the 3-on-3 overtime format, or is Ben an idiot? Like, are those our 2 options? Maybe
that's not a fair poll, because I think the idiot's going to win big time. Like, that's not going to be fair. The thing I was going to say, as far as Apple goes, like, and I hate begging and this type of stuff, but I would just like a few 5-star reviews, because we've had a few reviews. One person was very nice, left a comment. We've had a few 5-star reviews. We had a few people that left 3, which I don't know how to feel about 3. Like, it's not terrible.
I feel like I'm super familiar with 3 out of 5 stars.
I know. I'm getting
in like my whole life. I think is 3 out of 5 stars. Like whenever I did an essay for school, it would be like a 3 out of 5. Like I think 3 out of 5 is sort of my sweet spot. So it would be great if to get some 5 out of 5 reviews.
Yeah, I'm getting flashbacks to math class and 3 out of 5 and stuff like that. So if you listen to the podcast on Apple, like we would both appreciate a 5-star review. Just give it a 5-star. That means you like it.
If you don't want to give us a 5-star review,
ignore.
Send us a personal email and complain there. Don't put it on Apple. How about that?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. We'll be back next week to talk about the 2 wins that the Canucks pick up this weekend versus the Stockton Heat. Thank you again, and we will see you soon.